everybody, I'm Sarah, the Real Simple Mama. Welcome to my kitchen and the glory that is my plant shelf. So I have a plant video for you today. It's mostly about houseplants, but it can work for other plants as well. So let's talk about how to make more plants for free by something that I call water propagation. And I'll show you all about what I do, the steps, what I recommend, and I'll show you some plants throughout this process. So hello, and again, welcome to my kitchen and the reality that is, a little house with multiple kids. And then of course you have to have a plant shelf. So here's what I'm talking about. And this, like I said, is specifically for houseplants, though you can see my example of how to do this with herbs here if you want to check out that video. A lot of the information is going to be the same though. So as you can see, I have a ton of syngonium, different kinds of pothos, maranta. There's my whole shelf of alocasias. I have all different kinds of things here. And then there's more over here and more over there. And so what I'm talking about is propagating. And propagating is a big fancy word that means making more plants for free. So this is, I cut a piece off of a healthy, thriving adult plant. And then over time, and with some patience, instead of me having to go buy a second plant, I can grow a second plant from that first one. And so I've got a couple of examples of what I'm going to show you. And you can see all my materials and everything here. And also, if you see any supplies or stuff that I'm using, understand that I pay for everything here. So if I recommend a product, then you can trust that it really is amazing. So what I like to do is something called water propping or water propagation, but I've been doing this for a long time. And if you are on the Greg app, you could see me there as Real Simple Mama as well. But let me give you some tips and some tricks as to what I have done. So you can see I've got a Swiss cheese plant who's going here. And you've got the little nodes there. I've got basil over here on the side that I can show you. I just chopped up one of my pothos, my Cebu blue, so I'm gonna be able to show you that. But this works for a lot of different plants that have a node or who will easily grow new roots and a new plant through a stem. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move you over here to my windowsill. While I'm thinking about it, here are my mango trees that I started. You could see the video here about how I did that, literally from a mango pit that I got like from a mango at the grocery store. So what we're going to be looking at is these guys here. And so what you want to do, we could talk about pothos specifically. I've also done this with fiddle leaf fig, with a rubber plant, with basil, with all different kinds of guys. You saw the Swiss cheese plant. So here's what you want to do. You pick a healthy plant who's doing just fine and who's not going to suffer if you cut off a couple of little things. And again, I would rather be patient and take the time to do this on my own than be paying for more plants. So what I did is here's my Cebu blue right here. And as you can see, his stem is only about 8 inches long now. It was about 3 feet long. And what I did is I ended up cutting that one stem off, and then I cut everything into smaller sliced and diced pieces. Now, in the case of a pothos or a lot of regular houseplants, this also goes for monstera, other guys like that. And you need to make sure that every cutting has a node. And a node sounds kind of gross and kind of weird, but it's basically like a joint. Like we have on each knuckle would be like a node, or like our elbow joint is a node. And the node is gonna go in water. I suggest you use either glass containers, or if you've got amber glass containers or amber plastic, think like an old prescription bottle, an old vitamin bottle, that works great. So what you want to do is use really sharp shears, and you're going to cut your cutting as many pieces, whatever size you want, but you're looking for each cutting. Again, if it's got nodes, like pothos, monstera, you want to make sure there's one node per cutting, because that's where the new roots will grow. So if you're looking here, the funny little brown in each of those, that's the node. Essentially, I don't even need that extra piece of stem right there. That's probably just gonna rot with time, so I'll trim that off. But where the little brown, funny little knuckle is, that is the node, and that is where the roots are going to come from. So you can see I've got a ton of nodes that have a leaf on them. And then I had another set of nodes because that stem was so leggy and so long. I have another vase full of nodes that, if you can see, they don't even have any leaves. They're just like little stems, little elbow joints. Now, my goal with this guy is that eventually I'm going to have, instead of just one vine coming out of that pot, I'm going to have like 10 healthy vines. And then I can repot them into a bigger pot with the vines all the way around and cascading down in every direction. This is really great. Again, if you want a second plant to put in a different place, to gift to somebody, but it can also, again, if you have the time, it will help make your plants look a lot more full once you put all of those cuttings in the same thing. Now you can see this video here of how I also, like I was talking about at the beginning, how I also propagate basil. Basil doesn't really have a node, so basil is actually going to grow roots from that entire stem. Basically, everything that's submerged, it will grow roots from. So yes, you can have the roots on that much of the stem, just solid hairy roots coming down. Similar things with other plants, even like tomato plants. If you plant a tomato plant really deep in the dirt and put its stem way under the soil, all along the tomato stem, it will grow more roots. So the goal is that these guys are going to be in water for a while. I personally use RO water, and they are in a south-facing window where they get plenty of filtered light. And they're going to sit here. The two things you need to do on this first phase while we're waiting for roots, and all of these guys just got chopped today, so obviously there's not going to be any roots yet. The two things that you're looking for is that you're making sure that the water level stays high enough, right? Because obviously the plant will start to die out if the node or if that cut part of the stem is below the water. These plants are still alive and they will continue to live and grow while they're in the water, but you have to just make sure they have enough water. The other thing is, if you start to see it getting really mildewy, green, algae-y looking, you want to clean it out, because that kind of stuff, that algae that is in there, it will start eating the stem material and the root material, and we don't want that. So these guys are going to sit here at the basil roots really quickly. Like within a week, they're going to have plenty of roots. The pothos may take a little longer, but again, make sure that they have clean water, they're getting sunlight, or you have them under like, it doesn't need to be a strong grow light. And you're just watching the water level and making sure that the water stays clean, topping it off as necessary. Let's go to the next spot. This is the next step of what I do when I am water propagating. And I'll give you a couple of tips here, but this is going to be like, sort of for me, like the level up. This is what I've learned that has really, really helped my water propagation. So in the past, this is what happened, right? So there's that window where we just were. Those guys would sit there in pure water, right? There's no soil. So the roots are kind of spoiled. They're used to just getting nutrients out of the water. I will say also, like I said in the other video, I use Happy Houseplant. Yes, that's the name. Don't make me say it 3 times fast. But I use that fertilizer in every single watering. I have squirt bottles that I use to fill up these little guys and the watering cans outside, but all of my houseplants, all of my indoor guys, including all of my water props, they all get Happy Houseplant in every single watering. The stuff lasts forever. It's amazing. I love it. I'm a paying customer. They didn't pay me to say that, although I would love it if they did. So hey, if you work for Happy Houseplant, give me a call. The other thing is that because your plant has a finite amount of energy, it's not going to be able to continue to make roots and leaves while it's in those little cups. It's going to have to kind of make a decision. And of course, if you're thinking about it, that little cutting that you just like cut off of the mother plant, it doesn't want to die. So it's going to choose to maybe let those leaves that you cut off suffer. The leaves may wrinkle up, they may brown, they may die, but don't freak out. That's okay, because you didn't cut them off because you wanted pretty leaves, right? You cut them off because you wanted more roots. You wanted to make another plant. So don't worry what the leaves look like. You should be seeing root growth. The other thing I'll suggest, and I'll put all of these products that I use, I'll link to them down in the video description. I personally, after these guys have gotten settled for a couple of days, I will take the cuttings out when I change the water and I will dip them in a rooting hormone. And that is literally like a white powder. One little container will last you forever. And while the stem is still wet, you just dip it in the rooting hormone. It's like a little cup. You dip it in the white powder. I let it sit out and dry for like 10 minutes. And then I put it back in its water prop little container. That to me has really helped like kickstart the growth of new roots, especially on guys like monstera who seem to take forever. So that really helps me out. It's not necessary. Happy Houseplant is not necessary. Those are just little things I like. And like I said, don't freak out if the leaves start to suffer and look kind of gross, because you're not worried about the leaves. You want the plant to focus on getting new roots on that little cutting. So now let me zoom out and pan back over here to my dinner table. Okay, now we're at my dinner table now that I cleaned my camera. God, why do our phone cameras always get so dirty? So this is the top of Freddie Mercury, who is my rubber plant. And then this is the top of the notorious FIG, who is my fig tree. Now, you see they are in bigger vases. You see they have a ton of roots. oh, look at that. Isn't that fantastic? But then you're like, dude, Sarah, what is wrong with the water? Why is it so disgusting? This is like my secret weapon. This is my pro tip for you when it comes to water propping. So for the longest time, like I said, I would do water props like that, right? And they're in clean water and everything is fine and they get sunlight. And then when they have roots at, I don't know, at least 3 roots of at least 2 or 3 inches, I would throw them in a pot of dirt. And then they would start to die. And I would be like, what is going on? Like, your roots were great. You were fine. Okay, well, here's what you need to be aware of. So when it comes to the plants and the roots get, in my opinion, kind of spoiled when they're just in water because you are putting the fertilizer in there for them. And so the roots are growing and they're fine, but they're not used to having to get the nutrients out of the soil. So when you put them from straight water into straight soil, they go into shock. And it's kind of like, I don't know how to do this. Like, if you ever seen The Abyss, remember where there was that scene towards the end and they had to drink like that special water to breathe? And it was like a shock to their system, right? That's what's happening to your poor little roots. They were thriving in water. But if you want to move them to soil, you have to teach the roots how to get what they need from soil instead. And so my mad scientist idea that worked is that I take my houseplant soil mix that I make, and you can see that video here, and I start dropping in a little bit of dirt in with their water. Let me show you the other one because that vase has decorations on it. It's hard to see. And so essentially I'm starting to make mud, but do you see how there's soil clinging to those roots? And as I try to get my fingers out of the way, you see that? The roots will explode with growth if you start to put just a little bit of soil in with the water. Now, I'm still cleaning the water. I'm still topping off the water as I need to. They're still getting happy houseplant in their top off, but they have my houseplant soil mix now too. And so now they have been sitting, I've added soil twice. So the first time I just added 1 little scoop, and I mean, you just, you know, it is what it is. You add just a little bit. This is very not precise, but me doing this has really helped so that now when I transition these guys into a pot, there is no shock. There is no transition period where the plant is suffering and it's not growing and like, oh man, is it going to die? Like, it's just like, oh, I know what this is. I know what to do. I'm good. So I added soil once and left them for 4 days. I added soil a second time and I've left them for 3 days. They're going to go into soil tomorrow. And I will take them out of this. I sprinkle them like crazy, their whole root system, with cinnamon. You can see here why I like to do that. Basically, it's an antifungal, antimicrobial, kills all the bad stuff, leaves all the good stuff on the roots. And then they will be in fresh soil, fresh water. I don't dump this on them, but my clean, fresh houseplant mix and clean water, and then they are good to go. As you can see, the notorious FIG, I know the roots are dirty, but if you see it as it's moving around in there, he has like well over like 5 or 10 roots. They're probably like 5 inches long. So he is definitely ready to go into the water, or into the soil, excuse me. And then same thing with Freddie Mercury Jr. Lots of roots here. He's going to take a little bit longer. He was a lot slower to sprout roots. So whether you're cutting the top off like I did these guys because I'm trying to get them to branch out into more on my little baby trees, or you're doing herbs like the basil, or you're doing things like pothos or monstera, or I haven't tried it yet with syngonium. You know, different plants have different methods. It won't work for every single house plant. Every plant has their own little thing, but I think it's really, really fun. And again, if you have the patience, you can make additional plants for free that you end up all potting together to make everything look more full, or that you can use, you know, to gift them to a friend. Or I have plants all over here. I have them on the window by my kitchen sink. And now I've put a couple of plants in my classroom at work. I have them also, where else? I have a living room table that's got grow lights. And now I've also put them on shelves that I built in my master bathroom. So the green takeover is alive and well here at the house of Real Simple Mama. But I will tell you, if you have the patience, this is a really, really good strategy for lots of plants. But again, the secret is adding some soil and letting those roots acclimate to getting nutrients from soil instead of just water. So let me know down in the comments what you think. Thanks as always for subscribing and for watching and for sharing this out. Hopefully I'll see you around on the Greg app. And if not, keep checking back here on my YouTube channel for more videos in my All Things Green playlist. Thanks so much.